The alarm screamed across the Vrathian command center. Red lights flashed in the darkness of space. Commander Vexthor stared at the holographic display with all four of his eyes wide open. This could not be real. "Confirm the reading," he hissed at his sensor officer. "Confirmed, Commander. One human battleship. It crossed into our space 17 minutes ago." The officer's voice shook with fear. Vexthor felt his blood turn cold. Humans. Those impossible creatures had finally done it. They had crossed the line. For 5 years there had been peace. A tense, angry peace, but peace nonetheless. Now this. "Send word to the Supreme Admiral. Tell him the humans have declared war." Far across the void, Captain Ji-hoon walked slowly across the bridge of the UHSF Dauntless. His boots made soft sounds on the metal floor. Around him, his crew worked in silence. Everyone knew what they had done. Everyone knew they might not go home. "Captain," Lieutenant Commander Yuna said quietly. She stood beside his command chair, her face calm but her eyes worried. "We still have time to turn back. No shots have been fired yet." Ji-hoon shook his head. "We're not turning back, Yuna. This is too important." "Sir, with respect, this is insane. We're one ship. They have hundreds." "I know exactly what they have." Ji-hoon sat down in his chair and looked at the main screen. Stars streaked past as the Dauntless moved deeper into enemy territory. "And they know what we have too. Information. Truth. That's worth more than 1,000 ships." At the navigation station, Do-hyun called out, "We're on course, Captain. 42 hours until we reach the coordinates." 42 hours. Ji-hoon thought about those hours. 42 hours for the Empire to decide what to do. 42 hours for the galaxy to watch and wonder. 42 hours to change everything. On the other side of the galaxy, Ambassador Nari stood before the Galactic Council. Hundreds of alien species filled the great chamber. All of them stared at her with confusion and anger. "Explain this action," demanded the council speaker, a tall creature with silver skin. "Your ship has violated the treaty. The Vrathian Empire demands an explanation." Nari stood straight and spoke clearly. "Humanity has discovered something that concerns all of us. We cannot share details yet, but we ask for patience. Our ship means no harm." The chamber exploded with angry voices. Delegates shouted. Some called for sanctions. Others demanded immediate action against humanity. The Vrathian delegate, a massive warrior named Kralix, stood and pointed at Nari. "Your people have chosen death. We will not allow this insult. Your ship will be destroyed." Nari did not look away. "We are not your enemy. We seek only truth." Back in Vrathian space, Supreme Admiral Kravex studied the tactical display. 3 of his best fleets were moving to intercept the human ship. Over 300 warships against 1. It should be easy. It should be simple. But something felt wrong. "What is the human ship doing?" he asked his staff. "Moving forward at steady speed, Admiral. No evasive maneuvers. No weapons powered up. They're broadcasting something." "What are they broadcasting?" The communications officer touched his console. A strange sound filled the command room. Words in a language no one had heard in thousands of years. Old words, ancient words, words that made Kravex's hearts beat faster. "Where did they learn that language?" he whispered. No one answered. No one knew. Kravex turned to his oldest advisor, a historian named Thelmos. "Go to the archives, the sealed ones. Find anything about this language. Find it now." Thelmos bowed and left quickly. He knew what the sealed archives contained. He knew the secrets, and if the humans had discovered those secrets, then everything was about to change. On the Dauntless, engineer Hyunsu worked in the engine room. His hands moved over the controls, checking every system. The ship needed to be perfect. They would only get one chance at this. "How are we looking?" Yuna's voice came through his earpiece. "All systems green, Commander. We can run at full power for 3 weeks if needed." Let's hope we don't need 3 weeks. Hyunsu smiled sadly. Let's hope. He thought about Earth, about his family. His sister had begged him not to take this mission. She said it was suicide. Maybe she was right, but some things were more important than survival. The 3 Vrathian fleets reached their positions. They formed a wall of metal and weapons between the Dauntless and its destination. 300 ships, all bristling with guns and missiles, all ready to fire. On the flagship, Fleet Commander Zarkoth received orders from Supreme Admiral Kravex. Simple orders. Clear orders. Do not fire unless fired upon. Wait for my command. Zarkoth stared at the message. Wait. They had overwhelming force. They could end this now. Why wait? But orders were orders. He told his fleet to hold position. The Dauntless approached the wall of ships. On the bridge, Ji-hoon stood up. This was the moment. Everything depended on what happened next. Open a channel to the Vrathian fleet, he ordered. Channel open, sir. Ji-hoon spoke carefully. This is Captain Ji-hoon of the UHSF Dauntless. We are on a peaceful mission. We carry information that concerns all species in this galaxy. We request passage. Silence. Long, terrible silence. Then Zarkoth's voice came back, hard and cold. You have violated our space. You have broken the treaty. Turn back now or be destroyed. Ji-hoon took a breath. We will not turn back, and we will not fire our weapons, but we will continue forward. What happens next is your choice. He cut the channel. Yuna gripped her console. Do-yoon held his breath. Hyun-soo, down in engineering, whispered a prayer. The Dauntless moved forward, slowly, steadily, toward the wall of 300 enemy ships. Across the galaxy, billions of beings watched the live feeds. They saw one small human ship approaching certain death. They wondered if humans were brave or just foolish. On Earth, people gathered in streets and homes. They watched their ship, their people moving into darkness. Some cried, some prayed, all waited. In the Galactic Council chamber, Ambassador Nari stood alone, watching the same feed. She had fought against this mission at first. Too dangerous, she had said, too reckless. But Ji-hoon had convinced her. Some truths were worth dying for. Now she watched and hoped she had made the right choice. The Dauntless was now just 100 kilometers from the Vrathian fleet. Weapons locked onto it. Targeting systems tracked its every movement. One word from Zarkoth, and it would become dust. But that word did not come. Ji-hoon smiled slightly. The Empire was afraid, not of his guns, not of his ship. They were afraid of what he knew, what he carried, what he might reveal, and fear, he knew, could be more powerful than any weapon. Maintain course, he said quietly. Let's see who blinks first. 6 months earlier, Dr. Sora knelt in the red dust of a dead world. Her fingers brushed against something buried beneath the sand, something old, something important. I found something, she called to her team. The other archaeologists came running. They had been on this planet for 3 weeks, searching through ruins that no one had touched in thousands of years. The world had no name anymore. Its people were gone. Its history was forgotten. Until now. Sora carefully dug around the object. It was a data crystal, still glowing faintly with internal power, technology that should not still work after so many centuries. She lifted it gently and carried it to their scanner. Let's see what you have to tell us, she whispered. The scanner hummed. Data began to flow across the screen. At first, Sora smiled. Then her smile faded. Her eyes grew wide. Her hands started to shake. Get Captain Ji-hoon on the line. Right now. Emergency priority. Her assistant stared at her. What is it? What did you find? The truth, Sora said quietly. The truth about everything. The data crystal contained records. Ancient records. Records of a species called the Architects. They had been the first great civilization in this part of the galaxy. They had built wonders. They had created peace among the stars. And then the Vrathians had come. The records showed everything. How the Vrathians had pretended to be friends. How they had learned from the architects. How they had grown strong. And then how they had attacked. The architects had fought back, but they were not warriors. They were builders, scientists, philosophers. The Vrathians crushed them, destroyed their cities, erased their history, took their place as rulers of this sector. But the architects had left something behind. A failsafe, a weapon of truth. Deep in what was now Vrathian space, the architects had built a station. A broadcasting station with enough power to reach every corner of the galaxy. Inside that station were the complete records, the full history. Everything the Vrathians had tried to hide for 10,000 years. The crystal showed the coordinates. It showed the activation codes. It showed everything. When Captain Ji-hoon saw the data, he sat in silence for a long time. Yuna stood beside him, reading the same information. She saw the coordinates. She saw how deep into enemy space they were. "This is madness," she said. "Even if this is all true, we can't reach it. We'd have to cross directly through their territory. They'd destroy us before we got halfway there." Ji-hoon looked up at her. "What if they didn't?" "What?" "What if they let us pass? What if they're too afraid to stop us?" Yuna shook her head. "Why would they be afraid of one ship?" "Because we know their secret now. If they destroy us, other humans will ask why. They'll investigate. Eventually, someone else will find what Dr. Sora found. But if they let us reach that station, the whole galaxy learns the truth immediately. So we're hoping they're too afraid to kill us." "No," Ji-hoon said. "We're betting that they value their lie more than they hate us." The proposal went to Earth's Defense Council. The debate lasted for days. Some called it brilliant. Others called it suicide. In the end, they voted to allow it. One ship, one crew, one chance to change galactic history. Dr. Sora insisted on coming. "I found it. I'm seeing this through." Ji-hoon tried to refuse, but Sora would not back down. Eventually, he agreed. She joined the crew of the Dauntless as chief science advisor. Back in the present, as the Dauntless moved through the Vrathian blockade, Supreme Admiral Kravex stood in the deepest archive room beneath the Imperial Palace. Thelmos had brought him here. The old historian's hands shook as he unlocked ancient data vaults. "The language the humans are broadcasting," Thelmos said. "It is architect tongue, the old language, the forbidden language." "How do they know it?" Kravex demanded. "They must have found something, ruins, records. I don't know how, but they know about the architects." Kravex felt sick. The architects were the Empire's greatest secret. Every emperor for 10,000 years had sworn to protect that secret, to bury it forever. If the galaxy learned what the Vrathians had done to the architects, everything would fall apart. "What else do they know?" he asked. Thelmos accessed more files, old files, hidden files. Files that showed the locations of architect sites. Most had been destroyed. But there was one that could not be destroyed. One that the Empire had simply hidden. The great broadcast station. "No," Kravex breathed. "They're going there. That's why they crossed our border." "What do we do, Admiral?" Kravex thought quickly. If they destroyed the human ship, humanity would want to know why. They would investigate. They might find other architect ruins. The secret could still come out. But if the humans reached the station and activated it, the secret would spread across the galaxy in minutes. Everyone would know. The Empire's legitimacy would crumble. "We need to stop them without destroying them," Kravex said. "We need to make them turn back voluntarily." "How?" "I don't know yet, but we must find a way." On the Dauntless, the crew watched as the Vrathian fleet parted slightly. Not enough to let them through, but enough to show they were not firing yet. "They're afraid," Do-yun said. Actually afraid. Ji-hoon nodded. Now comes the hard part, keeping them afraid without making them desperate. He opened another channel, this time broadcasting on all frequencies. Every ship could hear it. Every station could record it. The Galactic Council could monitor it. This is Captain Ji-hoon of the UHSF Dauntless. We are transmitting this message to all who can hear. Humanity has discovered evidence of an ancient species called the Architects. We have learned that the Vrathian Empire destroyed them and hid this crime for 10,000 years. We are traveling to confirm this evidence. We invite any species to send observers. We seek only truth. The galaxy exploded with response. News networks broadcast the message. Governments convened emergency sessions. Species that had suffered under Vrathian rule suddenly had hope. Maybe the Empire was not all-powerful. Maybe their history was built on lies. Ambassador Nari watched the chaos in the council chamber. Delegates shouted at each other. The Vrathian representative tried to deny everything, but his voice was lost in the noise. The council speaker called for order. When silence finally came, he spoke directly to Nari. These are serious accusations. Do you have proof? Nari transmitted the data from the crystal Sora had found. She shared images of the ruins, translations of the architect language, everything except the coordinates of the broadcast station. This is what we have found so far, she said. We believe more evidence exists. We are entitled to investigate. The Vrathian delegate stood. This is all fabricated, lies to justify their invasion. But other delegates were already examining the data. Scholars and scientists among them recognized the authenticity. The evidence was real. Young Officer Taeyang watched all of this from his station on the Vrathian flagship. He was only 25 years old, but he had been raised on stories of Vrathian glory. Stories of how his people had brought order to chaos, how they had civilized the galaxy. Now he wondered if those stories were lies. He accessed the classified archives that Thelmos had opened. His security clearance was not high enough for most of it, but he found fragments. Enough fragments to see the truth. His people were not heroes. They were conquerors, thieves, murderers. Taeyang felt his world collapse. Everything he believed was wrong. The Dauntless continued forward. The standoff continued. And across the galaxy, the pressure built. Truth was coming, whether the Empire wanted it or not. The first day passed without shots fired. The Dauntless moved at quarter speed through the Vrathian blockade. 300 warships surrounded it, weapons ready but silent. The galaxy watched and held its breath. Captain Ji-hoon recorded a message every few hours. Simple messages, clear messages. He described their peaceful transit. He showed their powered-down weapons. He made sure everyone could see that humanity was not the aggressor here. This is hour 26 of our journey, he said into the camera. We continue forward. The Vrathian fleet continues to track us but has not interfered. We remain committed to our peaceful mission. On Earth, billions watch these broadcasts. In every city, people gathered around screens. Some held vigils. Others prayed. All of them felt the same fear and pride. Their people were out there, alone, facing impossible odds. Ji-hoon's sister stood in a crowd in Seoul, tears running down her face. She had told him not to go. She had begged him. But she also knew her brother. When Ji-hoon believed in something, nothing could stop him. Come home, she whispered to the screen. Please come home. In the Galactic Council chamber, chaos had turned to tense debate. Ambassador Nari stood at the center of it all, answering questions for hours. Some species supported humanity's mission. Others feared it would spark a war. A few seemed excited by the possibility of seeing the mighty Vrathian Empire finally held accountable. What is your goal? Asked a delegate from a small species called the Temari. Do you seek to destroy the Empire? No, Nari said firmly. We seek only truth. If the Vrathians have committed crimes, they should acknowledge them. Justice begins with honesty. The Vrathian delegate, Kralix, slammed his massive fist on his podium. You speak of honesty while invading our space. Your ship violates our sovereignty. Our ship is unarmed and traveling peacefully. Your forces outnumber us 300 to 1. Who is really threatening whom? The council speaker called for calm again. This situation is unprecedented. We must find a peaceful solution. But everyone knew there might not be a peaceful solution. Not if the Dauntless actually reached its destination. On the Vrathian flagship, Supreme Admiral Kravex paced like a caged animal. His advisors had given him options, all bad options. We could disable their engines, one suggested. Not destroy them, just stop them. Their ship has too much armor, another said. We would need heavy weapons. It would look like an attack. We could jam their communications, stop them from broadcasting. The damage is already done. The galaxy knows what they claim. Jamming them now proves we're hiding something. Kravex wanted to scream. Every option led to disaster. Attack and prove humanity right. Do nothing and let them reach the broadcast station. Either way, the Empire lost. What about negotiation? Asked Thelmos quietly. Everyone turned to look at the old historian. Offer them something, he continued. Territory, technology, resources. Make them turn back voluntarily. Kravex considered this. It showed weakness, but maybe that was better than the alternatives. He ordered communications to open a private channel to the Dauntless. On the human ship, Jihun received the transmission. Kravex's face appeared on the screen, trying to look calm. Captain Jihun, we should talk. I'm listening. Your mission is based on misunderstandings, old stories. We can explain everything if you would just turn back. We can offer you much in return for this simple gesture. Jihun shook his head. We're not interested in payments or bribes, Admiral. We're interested in truth. The truth is complicated. The past is complicated. What benefit does it bring to dig up ancient history? The benefit is justice. The benefit is knowing what really happened. 7 species were erased from existence. Don't they deserve to be remembered? Kravex's face hardened. Those species were weak. They could not adapt. The strong survive. This is the law of nature. Maybe, Jihun said, but the law of civilization is different. Civilized beings hold each other accountable. They don't hide their crimes behind lies. The channel went dead. Kravex had ended the conversation. Yuna looked at Jihun. You could have negotiated, asked for something in return for turning back. We're not turning back, Jihun said. Not for anything. The second day passed, then the third. The Dauntless moved like a ghost through enemy space, slow and steady. The Vrathian fleet followed, a cloud of metal and fury that never struck. Tensions on both sides grew. On the Dauntless, crew members grew nervous. They knew their luck could not hold forever. Eventually, someone in the Vrathian fleet would get trigger-happy. Hyunsu worked 16-hour shifts in engineering, making sure every system was perfect. If they had to run or fight, he wanted the ship ready. Do-hyun barely left his navigation station. He plotted and replotted their course, looking for any advantage, any edge that might help them survive. Dr. Sora prepared for what they would find at the architect station. She studied the data from the crystal over and over, memorizing every detail. They would only get one chance to activate it. On the Vrathian ships, different tensions built. Young Officer Tai Yang had shared his discoveries with a few trusted friends. Other young officers who had also started to question their empire's version of history. What if the humans are right? One asked. Then everything we learned was a lie, another answered. So what do we do? Taeyang did not have an answer yet, but he knew he could not stay silent forever. Some of the older Vrathian commanders grew impatient. They sent messages to Kravex demanding action. One ship could not be allowed to make fools of the entire empire. If they did not act soon, they would look weak. Other species would stop fearing them. Kravex ignored these messages. He was trapped between bad choices and worse choices. Attack and lose politically. Do nothing and lose strategically. There had to be a third option. He just could not see it yet. On the fourth day, something changed. A small Vrathian destroyer broke formation. Its captain, a hardliner named Kethrix, decided to take matters into his own hands. He moved his ship directly into the Dauntless's path. "Stop or be fired upon," he transmitted. On the Dauntless, alarms blared. The crew rushed to stations. Ji-hoon stood calmly. "Do not power weapons," he ordered. "Maintain course." "Sir, he's charging weapons," Yuna shouted. "I know. Maintain course." The destroyer fired a warning shot. Energy beams crossed in front of the Dauntless, close enough to make the shields flare. Ji-hoon opened a channel to the Vrathian flagship. "Admiral Kravex, one of your ships is firing on us. We have not raised shields or powered weapons. The galaxy is watching. What happens next?" Kravex saw the tactical display. He saw the live feeds being broadcast. He saw his carefully constructed situation falling apart because one idiot captain could not control himself. "Kethrix, stand down!" he roared. "That is a direct order." But Kethrix did not stand down. He fired again. This time, the shot hit the Dauntless's shields. Not enough to do real damage, but enough to be an act of war. On Earth, people gasped. In the council chamber, delegates jumped to their feet. This was it. This was how the war would start. But Ji-hoon did not fire back. He did not raise his shields higher. He did not even change course. "All ships," he broadcast on open channels. "The Vrathian Empire has fired upon an unarmed vessel on a peaceful mission. We do not respond with violence. We continue forward. The choice of war or peace remains with them." Kravex made his decision. He ordered 2 of his battleships to disable Kethrix's destroyer. They tractored the smaller ship and dragged it away from the Dauntless. The crisis passed. The Dauntless continued forward. Taeyang watched all of this happen. He saw a human ship refuse to fight even when attacked. He saw his own admiral restraining his own forces. He saw the incredible courage of people who believed in something more than weapons. That night, he made his choice. He could not serve an empire built on lies anymore. The Dauntless emerged from jump space near a swirling purple nebula. Sensors swept the area, searching for what Dr. Sora's data crystal had promised would be here. "There," Do-yun said, pointing at his screen. "Inside the nebula. Something big, something old." Ji-hoon leaned forward. "Take us in." Slowly. The ship moved into the nebula's edge. Purple clouds wrapped around them like silk, and then they saw it. The architect's station hung in space like a sleeping giant. It was massive, larger than any human city. Towers and rings of dark metal twisted in patterns that hurt to look at. Technology far beyond anything humanity or the Vrathians had ever built. "By all the stars," Yuna whispered. Dr. Sora was already suiting up. "We need to go aboard. I need to access the central systems." "I'm going with you," Ji-hoon said. "Captain, you should stay with the ship. The ship can manage without me for a few hours. This is too important." He looked at Yuna. "You have command. If anything goes wrong, jump away. Don't wait for us." Yuna wanted to argue, but she knew Ji-hoon's mind was made up. "Understood, sir. Be careful." The away team consisted of Ji-hoon, Sora, Do-yun, and 4 security officers. They took a shuttle across to the station. As they approached, lights began to flicker on across its surface. The station was waking up after thousands of years of sleep. "It recognizes the shuttle's signature," Sora said. "The crystal must have transmitted activation codes when we arrived." They docked at what looked like a landing bay. The door opened smoothly, as if it had been used yesterday. Inside, the air was breathable. The gravity was comfortable. Everything still worked perfectly. "Incredible," Do-hyun said. 10,000 years and it all still functions. They walked through corridors of strange beauty. Walls glowed with soft light. Symbols in the architect language covered every surface. Sora touched one wall and gasped as information flowed into her datapad. "It's welcoming us. It's been waiting for someone to come." They reached a central chamber. In its heart stood a control console covered in glowing symbols. Sora approached it carefully, her hands shaking. "This is it, the broadcast system. From here, we can transmit to every inhabited world in the galaxy simultaneously." Ji-hoon looked at the console. So much power, so much responsibility. One decision could change everything. Back in space, the Vrathian fleet had followed the Dauntless into the nebula. Supreme Admiral Kravex stood on his flagship's bridge, staring at the Architect station with horror. "I thought it was destroyed," Thelmos whispered. "So did everyone," Kravex replied. "But our ancestors lied. They hid it here, thinking no one would ever find it. What do we do?" Kravex had run out of options. He could order his fleet to destroy the station. The firepower he had could probably do it. But the Dauntless would transmit everything before the first shot hit. The whole galaxy would see the Empire destroying evidence. He could board the station and try to stop the humans by force. But that would be an open act of war. And it might fail. The humans might activate the broadcast before his soldiers reached them. There was only one thing left to try. "I'm going aboard," he said. His staff stared at him in shock. "Admiral, you can't—" "I can and will. Prepare my shuttle. I will speak to this human captain face to face." On the station, Sora was working through the Architect computer systems. Data flowed past her eyes faster than she could process. History, records, proof of everything they had suspected and more. "Ji-hoon, you need to see this," she said. He came to stand beside her. The screen showed images from 10,000 years ago. The Architects had been a peaceful species, tall and graceful, with 4 arms and wise eyes. They had created art, music, science. They had helped other species grow and thrive. Then the Vrathians had come, young and aggressive. The Architects had welcomed them, taught them, shared with them. The Vrathians had learned well. Then they had attacked. The images showed battles, cities burning, Architect children running from Vrathian soldiers, mass graves, deliberate extermination. "They didn't just conquer them," Do-yun said, his voice thick with emotion. "They erased them, completely." "And 6 other species too," Sora added. "Look, the Thalkor, the Marine, the Vorathi, all extinct, all destroyed by the Vrathians." Ji-hoon felt cold fury building in his chest. This was worse than he had imagined. This was genocide, multiple genocides. "Can we transmit this?" he asked. "Yes, the system is ready. I just need to activate it." Sora's hand hovered over the console. "Wait," Ji-hoon said. Everyone turned to look at him. "Before we do this, we need to think. Once we transmit, there's no taking it back. The galaxy will never be the same. The Vrathian Empire will fall. Maybe violently, maybe with war. Are we ready for that responsibility?" Before anyone could answer, alarms blared. A Vrathian shuttle was approaching the station. "It's Admiral Kravex," Do-yun reported. "He's alone." "Let him board," Ji-hoon said. "I want to hear what he has to say." They met in the central chamber. Kravex entered with his head held high, but his eyes showed fear. He looked at the console, at the data scrolling across screens, at the evidence of his people's crimes. "Captain Ji-hoon," he said, "we should talk." "Talk quickly, Admiral. We're nearly ready to transmit." Kravex took a deep breath. "I know what my ancestors did. I know the lies our empire is built upon, and I know that if you transmit this information, my people will face consequences, perhaps destruction." "So you came to beg?" "No. I came to offer a choice. Kravex stepped closer. Do not transmit this data. Give me time. Let me reform the Empire from within. Let me acknowledge these crimes properly through official channels. Let me build a path to justice that doesn't lead through war. And why should I trust you? Because war will kill millions. Maybe billions. Yes, my people committed terrible crimes. But the current generation did not. They were born into a lie. Do they deserve to die for what their ancestors did? Ji-hoon considered this. Kravex had a point. The young Vrathians today were not the ones who had committed genocide. Punishing them for ancient crimes seemed wrong, but letting those crimes stay hidden also seemed wrong. What guarantee do I have that you'll keep your word? Ji-hoon asked. None. Only my honor as a soldier. Behind them, a door opened. Officer Tae-yang entered carrying a datapad. He looked nervous but determined. Forgive my intrusion, Admiral, he said, but I have something the captain should see. He handed the datapad to Ji-hoon. On it were files, classified Vrathian files, the true histories that had been sealed for centuries. Everything the Empire had hidden. Where did you get this? Kravex demanded. From the Imperial Archives. I stole them, and I transmitted them to the Galactic Council 1 hour ago. Silence filled the chamber. Kravex's face went pale. Ji-hoon looked at the young Vrathian officer with new respect. You betrayed your own people, Kravex said. No, Admiral, I saved them from themselves. Tae-yang stood straight. The lies had to end. I chose to end them on our terms, with our own records, rather than let humans do it for us. At least this way, we control the narrative. We admit our crimes ourselves. Ji-hoon looked at Sora. She nodded slowly. The data was already out there. The council had it. The truth would spread regardless of what they did here. It seems the choice has been made for us, Ji-hoon said to Kravex. The Admiral looked old suddenly, tired. What happens now? Ambassador Nari's voice came through Ji-hoon's communicator. Captain, the council is demanding a full session. All species. They want answers. They want the Vrathian Empire to face judgment. Ji-hoon made his decision. We're activating the broadcast, not to attack the Vrathians, but to honor the dead. The architects and the other lost species deserve to have their story told. He nodded to Sora. She pressed the activation sequence. Across the galaxy, on billions of worlds, screens flickered to life. The true history began to play. Images of the architects, their beauty, their wisdom, their destruction, names of the 7 extinct species, their cultures, their art, everything they had been before the Vrathians erased them. And at the end, a simple message from Captain Ji-hoon. We share this not to destroy, but to remember. Those who forget history are doomed to repeat it. Let us build a better future by acknowledging the past. 3 months later, Captain Ji-hoon stood in a hearing room on Earth. Leaders from the Defense Council sat in a semicircle before him. Some looked proud. Others looked angry. All of them had questions. You risked war with the most powerful empire in the galaxy, one counselor said. You could have gotten millions killed. But I didn't, Ji-hoon replied calmly. The Vrathian Empire is still standing. No war has started, and the truth is finally known. You acted without full authorization. You put your crew in danger. My crew volunteered. Every single person on the Dauntless knew the risks. And they chose to come anyway because some things are more important than safety. The hearing went on for hours. In the end, the council could not punish Ji-hoon too harshly. He was a hero to too many people, but they also could not ignore what he had done. His solution was reassignment. No more command for a while. Instead, he would serve as an advisor on alien relations. Ji-hoon accepted this without complaint. The mission had succeeded. That was all that mattered. Far across the galaxy, the Vrathian Empire was changing. Supreme Admiral Kravex had resigned, as had most of the High Command. They faced tribunals now, answering for what their ancestors had done and what they had helped hide. The trials were broadcast across the galaxy. Species that had suffered under Vrathian rule watched with satisfaction. But many also watched with sympathy. The Vrathians on trial were not the ones who had committed genocide. They were simply the ones who had inherited the lie. Taiyang testified at several trials. He explained how he had discovered the truth, how he had chosen to expose it rather than protect it. Some Vrathians called him a traitor, others called him a hero. The new Vrathian government offered him a position as a liaison to other species. They needed people who could admit the truth and work toward healing. Taiyang accepted. His first assignment was to meet with human representatives. He requested specifically to meet Captain Ji-hoon. They met at a neutral station in a simple cafe. Taiyang ordered tea. Ji-hoon ordered coffee. For a moment, they just sat in silence. "Thank you," Taiyang said finally. "For what?" "For forcing us to face what we were, what we are. Without you, we might have kept living the lie forever." Ji-hoon shook his head. "I didn't force anything. You made the choice to share those archives. That took real courage. We both did what we had to do." They talked for hours, about the future, about how to build trust between their peoples, about the hard work of reconciliation. It would take generations, they agreed, but it was possible. Dr. Sora led a team of archaeologists from multiple species back to the Architect Station. They cataloged everything, preserving the history that had almost been lost. She made sure that every piece of information was shared freely. No more secrets, no more hidden history. She found more than just records of the past. The architects had left behind technology. Clean energy systems, medical advances, agricultural techniques, things that could help billions of beings across the galaxy. They wanted to help people, Sora said in an interview. Even after death, even after extinction, they're still helping. That's their real legacy. The Galactic Council established something new. They called it the Architect Accords, new laws about historical preservation, about preventing genocide, about holding powerful species accountable. Every member species had to sign and follow these laws. Ambassador Nari helped write the accords. She worked day and night, negotiating with dozens of species, finding common ground. It was exhausting work, but important work. The Vrathian Empire signed the accords. They had no choice, really, but many Vrathians signed them willingly. They wanted to be better than their ancestors. Lieutenant Commander Yuna received her own ship as promised. The UHSF Integrity was smaller than the Dauntless, but just as important. Her mission was to patrol the new cooperative zones where humans and Vrathians worked together. She chose Do-hyun as her navigator. He accepted gratefully. They made a good team. Engineer Hyun-soo joined a research project studying architect technology. His expertise with human systems combined with architect designs created something new, something better. He loved the challenge. On Earth, Ji-hoon visited the memorial garden that had been built to honor the architects and the 6 other extinct species. 7 stone monuments stood in a circle. Each one bore the name of a lost civilization. Each one told their story in simple words. Humans came here to remember, to learn, to make sure such tragedies never happened again. Ji-hoon's sister found him there one day. She had not spoken to him much since he returned. She had been too angry about the risks he took. "I watched the broadcast," she said quietly. "I saw what you found, what they did. I'm sorry I worried you. I'm still angry, but I understand now why you had to go." She put her hand on his arm. Those people deserve to be remembered. Their stories deserve to be told. Yes, they did. They stood together in the garden, reading the names of species that no longer existed. It was sad, but it was also hopeful, because now, at least, they were not forgotten. 6 months after the mission, Ji-hoon received new orders. The Defense Council wanted him back in active service, not as punishment, but because they needed him. A new ship was being commissioned, the UHSF Dauntless II, larger than the original, more advanced, and with a mixed crew, humans and Vrathians serving together. "They want you to captain it," Yuna told him over a video call. "A joint mission. Exploration. Cooperation. Building trust." Ji-hoon smiled. "That sounds good. Will you join us?" "Can't. I have my own ship now, remember? But Do-hyun might be interested. And I heard Taeyang requested a position." "The Vrathian officer?" "He wants to serve alongside humans, show his people that cooperation is possible." Ji-hoon thought about this. A mixed crew, former enemies working together. It would be difficult. There would be arguments, mistrust. Old hatreds would not disappear overnight. But it was a start. He accepted the command. The launch ceremony happened on a station in neutral space. Representatives from dozens of species attended. Cameras broadcast the event across the galaxy. Ji-hoon stood on the bridge of the new Dauntless, looking at his crew. Half human, half Vrathian. Young people from both species, ready to build something better than what their ancestors had. Taeyang served as his first officer. It was unusual, having a Vrathian in such a high position on a human ship. But Ji-hoon trusted him. The young officer had proven his integrity. "Ready to launch, Captain," Taeyang reported. Ji-hoon looked at the view screen. Stars waited out there, endless possibilities, new worlds to discover, new species to meet, and hopefully, no more buried secrets. "Take us out," he ordered. "Let's see what's waiting for us." The Dauntless II moved forward, into the unknown. Behind it, the Architect Station continued to broadcast its message of hope. Truth had been revealed. Justice was being sought. The galaxy was healing. It would take time. Generations, probably. Old wounds did not close quickly, but the work had begun. On Earth, in the Memorial Garden, new visitors came every day. They read the stories of the architects. They learned about the Thalkor and the Myrene and the Varathi. They remembered the lost civilizations, and they promised never to forget. In the Vrathian homeworld, similar memorials were being built. The new government wanted its people to face their history honestly. They taught children about the crimes of the past, not to make them feel guilty, but to make them responsible. Never again. That was the promise. Never again would they erase other peoples. Never again would they hide the truth. Some old Vrathians protested. They wanted to return to the glorious lies of the past, but the young people would not listen. They had seen the evidence. They had heard the stories. They wanted to be better. Change was slow. Change was hard. But change was happening. Ambassador Nari retired from her position 5 years later. She had done her part. The Architect Accords were established. The galaxy had new rules, new hopes. She returned to Earth and wrote a book about everything that had happened, about the mission of the Dauntless, about the brave crew who had risked everything for truth. The book became required reading in schools across dozens of worlds. Young beings learned about Captain Ji-hoon and Dr. Sora, about Taeyang's courage, about how ordinary people could change the galaxy by simply refusing to accept lies. Dr. Sora died at the age of 93, surrounded by her discoveries. She had spent her life honoring the architects, making sure their legacy lived on. Her last words were simple: remember them. And the galaxy did remember. Captain Ji-hoon served on the Dauntless II for 20 years. He trained a new generation of officers, both human and Varathian. He explored distant stars. He made first contact with 3 new species, all of them peaceful. When he finally retired, he returned to Earth, to the Memorial Garden. He sat there often, thinking about the mission that had changed everything. Sometimes other veterans joined him. Yuna would visit when her ship was in port. Hyunsu came by regularly. Even Taeyang, now an admiral in the reformed Vrathian fleet, made the journey to Earth to sit in the garden and remember. They never regretted what they had done, the risks they had taken, the dangers they had faced, because truth mattered, justice mattered, remembering the dead mattered, and because of them, the galaxy was a better place. Years later, a young human child visited the memorial garden with her school. She stood before the monument to the architects and read their story. She asked her teacher, "Why were they destroyed?" The teacher, who had once served on a ship herself, knelt beside the child. "Because some people feared them. Because some people wanted power more than peace. Because lies are easier than truth. But Captain Ji-hoon found the truth. Yes, he did. And he made sure everyone knew it." The child touched the monument gently. "I want to be like him when I grow up." The teacher smiled. "Then remember this moment. Remember these names. And never be afraid to seek the truth, no matter how dangerous it might be." The child nodded seriously. She would remember. All across the galaxy, on hundreds of worlds, millions of children learned the same lesson. Truth was worth fighting for. Justice was worth risking everything for. And the dead deserved to be remembered. The architects were gone, but their legacy remained, and the galaxy would never forget.